Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a throwaway account in the relationship subreddit. The post is titled, "I think I might be my boyfriend's side chick. We've been together for 2 years. Tim and I have been together for 2 years. We are both foreigners living in Europe. Names have been changed. Tim is a very private person in general, so maybe some of the strangeness stems from that. To explain everything, I think I have to start at the very beginning. Tim and I met at an event for native English speakers after each of us had lived here for a year. We hit it off immediately. Later that week, we went to a pub crawl with other people from the event and hooked up. Only a few days later, we decided to meet up again, but when trying to decide if it would be at my place or his, he told me it had to be mine, and he would explain why later. For the record, I do not live in an ideal situation to have people, much less men, over, and he was completely aware of the situation. He came over and told me that he was still living with his ex-girlfriend of about 3 months. He had his own room and everything, but because he had prepaid 6 months of rent to lend her some money, he was staying there. Okay, so yeah, I know this is weird, but who am I to judge? He says they are definitely broken up and I'm just sleeping with the guy right now, so whatever. A few weeks go by and we decide to start dating exclusively and officially. He says he's just living with his ex, who will call Stephanie, temporarily for another 3 months, and then he'll find another place. Alright, so it's a weird situation, but I trust him and he'll leave in 3 months. He complains about having to live with her and says it's uncomfortable. He also told me why they broke up, which was because he caught her cheating on him with her ex at a party. So I'm not worried about them getting back together. I'm not 100% comfortable with the situation, but it's manageable. A few months pass and Tim doesn't move out. He says he's now got his own little apartment in the same house, but that it's much better for him to stay there because he doesn't have to buy any furniture, and the rent is cheap. He eventually starts saying that he's going to bring me over there to show me that they're living separately and whatnot. Long story short, that never happened. Every time I asked him to ask her about it, he'd say that she'd get upset and so on. Apparently, she was aware that he had a girlfriend but didn't like it and wanted to get back together. After a year, he finally moved out. Not into his own place, but into the spare room at his buddy's house. I had been to this buddy's place before, only once though, and that has been the one and only time I've ever met one of his non-mutual friends, which is suspicious and strange on its own. I didn't help with the move, so no, I never saw him move his stuff there. Again, this was a temporary solution until he found a place of his own. Through various circumstances, company being bought out, which led to job insecurity, and him being extremely picky about finding an apartment, he has still not moved into a place of his own. It's been about 10 months since he moved into his buddy's place, and I've yet to be there even though I've asked many times. He always says yes, but then later says that he doesn't want to intrude or be a nuisance, etc. So essentially, I've never seen where he lives. Those things, along with me never having met his friends or Skyping with his family, are the underlying basis for my suspicion. But here's where the real stuff comes. Last night when I couldn't sleep, I went Facebook stalking. I searched for tagged photos of Tim because I know he's weird about his Facebook and doesn't let tagged pictures and posts show up on his wall. While going through the pictures, I found 3 pictures of him while he was visiting home over the summer. In each of the 3 pictures, there is a girl who is untagged and sitting next to Tim. In 2 of the 3 pictures, his arm is around her. 2 of the pictures are with friends, so I figured she's a friend from home. No big deal. In 1 picture though, they are with his sister, her husband, and daughter, so a much more intimate picture. I do not know what Stephanie looks like, and she doesn't have Facebook. I can't find a picture of her through Googling, but I think this girl might be her. I don't know exactly why I think that, but I do. I did some more research and found Stephanie's grandmother's obituary. She died in January, so after Tim would have moved out of the house, and definitely after they should have been broken up. And yet on the obituary, his name is listed next to Stephanie's as members of the family. I do know that he was close to the grandmother and that she left him stuff in her will, but still, I'm suspicious. If what I suspect is true, that means that he was able to hide this from me and her for 2 years, which is honestly just impressive. Right now though, I'm stuck. I don't want to bring up my relatively weak evidence with him until I can be sure, because he'll just have an excuse and I'll just accept it because I want to trust him and be with him. I don't know how to get any more proof that the girl in the pictures is Stephanie, or how to know for sure one way or the other. So that's where I'd like advice. I'm not going to break up with him without knowing 100% because I honestly do love him, but I don't know how I can know 100%. Any advice or help is appreciated. Please be constructive. Update. So it's been a while. The story was developing and I didn't want to update without knowing anything for sure. I never expected my post to get so much attention, and aside from a few comments and private messages calling me a slut, I really appreciate all of the input everyone had. I read every single comment and message, so first off, thanks to everyone. As many people suggested, I started with a conversation with Tim, where I made very clear how much the whole situation bothered me and why it was an issue for me. I tried to show him things from my perspective and make him understand why I was so upset. He said he understood and apologized profusely. He cried and I cried. He said it was never his intention to hurt me and that he hadn't realized this had been such a large issue for me. He admitted he had been selfish about it. He said everything was going to change, that I would meet his friends, see where he's staying, and get to Skype with his family, etc. He said I was the most important part of his life here and that he couldn't imagine his life without me in it. He said he wanted to find an apartment for us to live together and that when I'm done with school, he wants to go back home together for good. He also told me that the girl in the pictures was an old family friend and that he was in the obituary because he is still close with the family and they still wish I was a part of the family. I decided to wait and see if he actually held up his end of the bargain this time, so we made up and all was well. What I didn't mention is that during my snooping phase before this conversation, I found the phone number to the landline where Stephanie lives and decided to give it a call asking for Tim. Stephanie's dad answered, and when I asked for Tim, he told me to call his cell phone because this was the landline. So not exactly helpful. A couple of days after Tim and I talked, he texted me asking if I had called Stephanie's house asking for him. I decided not to lie and admitted it. He said she had texted him saying that some girl with an accent had called the house asking for him, and he immediately thought it must have been me. I explained that I had done it because I felt desperate for answers and just wanted to know what was going on. I also told him that it was inconclusive. He got very upset and said I had betrayed his trust and that I was acting like an insane person. But I explained that I felt forced to take such actions because I felt like I was never going to get any answers any other way. I apologized for the invasion of privacy and for bothering Stephanie and her family. After a few days, he calmed down and forgave me, saying, however, that this might delay me meeting his friends because he told them what happened and they were upset that I would treat him that way. I waited a few weeks to see if anything would change, and unsurprisingly, it did not. So this past weekend, he got very drunk one night and I was able to unlock his phone with his fingerprint while he was sleeping. I found texts from Stephanie from the day before, talking about what they should make for dinner that night. I found lots of hearts and I love yous, and even him using the same pet names for her as he does for me. He told her he was going out of town that weekend for work and how much he'd miss her. I looked through the past few weeks of messages between them and saw that he had sent her quite a few of the same pictures he had sent me. He had invited her to have a glass of wine with his buddy and her girlfriend. He picked her up from work multiple times, and there were lots of conversations about who was making dinner that night and what they should eat. I checked dates when I knew he had slept over at my place, and he had always told her he was crashing at a friend's place or out of town for work or something similar. I also found a group text message titled Family that included Tim, his sister, his mom, and Stephanie. I looked at pictures of Stephanie that she had sent him and was able to clearly see that it was her in the pictures I found on Facebook. So you guys were right. For the last 2 years, he's been living with her and seeing me on the side, all the while telling me how much he loves and admires me and how we're going to have a future together. I have been duped and taken advantage of, and I feel like a complete idiot because of it. I haven't talked to him yet, but when he comes over later this week, I plan to tell him that I know everything. I also plan to tell him that he is a complete asshole. In my ideal conversation, he'd explain to me why he did this and what he was thinking during all this, but I am pretty sure those are just things I'll never know or understand. Obviously, I will break up with him. I also plan to contact Stephanie with a letter telling my side of the story. I will give her dates I know he spent the night with me so she can cross-check them with dates he did not come home. I also plan to include a USB stick with pictures of Tim and me from the last 2 years and screenshots of some of our conversations from the last couple of months. I can't make her believe me, but I want to do my best for her. I feel like I owe it to her as a fellow human being to let her know what kind of a man she's been with for the last 4 years. I am open to absolutely any advice on my plan and on how to move forward from this. I won't lie, I feel so lost and helpless right now. By breaking up with Tim, I'm losing a huge part of my life in this country, and I'm definitely going to feel this hole for a while. So any help is appreciated. Thank you all so much for listening, and sorry this is so long, I got carried away. Update 2. Again, I'd like to start this post by thanking everyone who responded with constructive and helpful advice. I read every comment and reply as well as every private message. I took your advice and did not try to have a conversation with Tim. I realized that since he had managed to manipulate me so successfully for 2 years, speaking to him one last time would probably only cause me to doubt my findings and perhaps even my sanity. I wrote Stephanie a 3-page letter detailing the relationship Tim and I had over the past 2 years. I made it clear that it was serious and not just a fling. I mentioned dates and events that most people would not have known about, and included the intricate lies and backstories he had told me. I provided a list of dates from the last 2 months when he spent the night with me and encouraged her to cross-check them with the nights he wasn't at home. I printed a few photos of us as quick visible proof and included the rest of the photos on a USB stick with the letter. The stick also contained screenshots of particularly incriminating conversations we had had over the last few months. I scanned postcards he had sent me from various vacations and included those as well. For good measure, I also included a copy of the letter itself, in case the original went missing. I gave her my email address and phone number and asked her to contact me if she wanted to. On Wednesday night, I had someone drive me to where she lives. If Tim was there, I would simply have confirmation that he actually lived there and we'd leave. If he wasn't there, I'd ring the doorbell and hand her the letter personally. We drove the 45 kilometers and Tim was sitting in the living room on his laptop. It was obvious he lived there. She was nowhere to be seen. Their names were on the mailbox. I called to see if he'd pick up, but he ignored the call. We drove back home. On Thursday morning, I mailed the letter, ensuring it was sent via registered post. To receive it, she had to show her ID and sign for it. The letter arrived on Friday. She wasn't home, so she received a notification to collect it at the post office. On Saturday morning, she picked it up and I received an email confirmation with her signature. Throughout all of this, I acted normally with Tim and made excuses as to why he couldn't come over during the week so as not to tip him off. He stopped speaking to me about 20 minutes after she picked up the letter on Saturday morning and I haven't heard from him since. He has, however, unfriended me and my family on Facebook. I have not heard from Stephanie either, so now it's really over. I sincerely hope he wasn't able to lie and manipulate his way out of the situation with her, but I will probably never know. I do not expect to hear from him again. I feel lonely, taken advantage of, and beaten down. I am going to do my best to come out of this situation without trust issues and without becoming cynical or jaded. I am seeking therapy to ensure I don't slip into depression. For now, I need to find ways to distract myself and fill up my free time. Kethable said, whenever OPs in these types of posts say they will wait to confront their boyfriend until they meet next in person, no, what are you doing? Do not. To this comment, user Nina1 said, that's when you know they haven't had enough life experience to learn that those conversations never work out the way they do in your head. In your head, you are like the hero detective laying out all the evidence, and the culprit is astonished and shamefaced at being caught. Then they confess to the reasons behind their dastardly deeds. Unfortunately, in real life, it's usually just more manipulation, crying, or stonewalling, but it's almost never satisfying. I'm glad OP didn't put herself through it after all. Ginger Zombie 2 said, stories like this always make me wonder what excuses he brewed up for holidays. Surely she would have wanted to see him for Christmas, unless he went home, I guess. But to not invite her along is a red flag. This second post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Topical Neil. The post is titled, "I told my coworker that she's falling for a romance scam and now she's upset. My friend, let's call her Nancy. Nancy and I have worked together for 3 to 4 years at a hair salon. Nancy is in her early 30s, kind of an airhead, gullible, but a really kind and nice person. She is currently in a relationship with a guy for about 6 months. He lives in New York. They talk on the phone all the time. He's been out here a couple of times to visit. We've never met him, but have heard a lot about their relationship. This morning, she texted me at 6 a.m. asking to borrow $10,000 because her boyfriend's mom has a family emergency and needs the money soon. She said he's working on an offshore oil rig in Dubai for 2 months and couldn't transfer the money until he comes back to the States. She doesn't have the money, so she asked if I could ask my relatives for the $10,000 for her. I told her that this sounds like a romance scam and that if he's asking her for such a big amount of money so early in their relationship, it's a red flag and she should reconsider. I also told her that since I don't know her boyfriend that well, if he ghosts her, either she or I would be on the hook for the 10 grand. Now, she won't answer my texts or calls. She also took a personal day from work today. Am I the asshole? Should I have kept my mouth shut and minded my own business? Edit 1. Yes, she is very naive and gullible. She believes she can talk to ghosts and spirits. That is another can of worms that I won't get into. She didn't bring her boyfriend around when he was in town a couple of times, just a bunch of excuses. I told her sister about it and got an earful about how I shouldn't judge a person in need like that. I gave up. I sent her a few articles about sweetheart and pig butchering scams, but still no reply. I know she read them. She is not the type who is loaded. She lives with her parents in their basement and lives paycheck to paycheck. I hope she will realize that this is a scam before she gets into debt. This will be an expensive lesson. Thank you for letting me vent. Edit 2, she just texted and asked for the money under the guise of her sister needing it. It was a flat no. I feel bad for her. I told other coworkers and my boss about it so they can say no to her, and maybe she'll understand from a group perspective that we're trying to protect her. Update. What we suspected was true. She was in a romance scam. She has never met her boyfriend in person. They only talk online. She said she was lonely and was afraid of being alone. She said her BF stopped contacting her after she couldn't get the money and started asking simple questions. After that, she realized that he was scamming her. She started telling me about how she had been sending him small amounts of money like $50 to $500 at the past 6 months to help him out with some small emergency. When he ghosted her after she couldn't help him with the $10K, then she realized that she had been romance scammed. I'm glad that she saw it for what it was. Southern European Hag said, sounds like my mother who really believes that 29-something Korean and Chinese actors are madly in love with her. Of course, they always urgently need Apple cards, Steam cards, her bank account username and password, and so on. Thank goodness she has no income at the moment, and when her pension arrives, she will be placed under financial conservatorship. Luna Moonchild said, as soon as OP said they'd never met the boyfriend, I thought, neither has Nancy. To this user, Turuiel said, you'd think that with all the coverage of scams like these, people would know better by now. However, their prevalence alongside scams like the Nigerian prince scams only serves to prove that they work. I hate the scammers and the people who perpetrate them so much. I had a friend who lost his job because he was tricked. They got him to activate a bunch of gift cards over the phone and give them the card details. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named OKDisaster. The post is titled, I told my mother-in-law that she made her choice when she chose to keep seeing my husband's ex. I and my husband Tom have been no contact with most of his family for 3 years. Within those 3 years, I have had twin boys, which has made my mother-in-law try to get back in contact with me. There is a lot of history, but here is a brief summary of why Tom and I are no contact, and it all revolves around Tom's ex, who we will call Talia. I am Indian American, and Tom is white. He comes from a pretty traditional family and grew up in a small town. Talia was my mother-in-law's best friend's daughter, and they were the small-town romance everybody envied. However, upon meeting in college, Tom and I just clicked on a platonic level, and to be honest, I did not even have feelings for Tom until 4 dates in. I guess you could say he had an emotional affair, but he never did anything physically romantic until he broke up with Talia. Talia, of course, remained in contact with his family since she had been, according to my mother-in-law, the daughter she always wanted. Keep in mind, Tom has a sister, but Talia is more of a homemaker, while my sister-in-law, who is an absolute angel, and I had always been more career-focused. Talia had been at every holiday, family gathering, and get-together since the very start of the relationship, and at first I paid it no mind. I was civil to Talia because my mother-in-law made it clear Talia mattered to her, despite Talia's blatant distaste and disrespectful attitude towards me. That changed at my weddings. We had 2, and my parents footed the bill for both. The dress code was simple. Aside from the obvious no white or wedding party colors rule, nobody was supposed to wear red. I am well aware that red means you slept with the groom, but more importantly, red is a bridal color in my culture. I wore a red lehenga and sari to my Indian wedding, which she wore an eggshell off-white dress to. Keep in mind, white is worn at funerals to represent purity in my culture. That got my aunties and cousins talking, but I still had a blast since I really did not care. I did care when she showed up to the American ceremony in a floor-length apple red gown with a slit going up the leg. It was a bridesmaid's dress and it violated the dress code. My sister-in-law, along with Tom, went to tell her to change. She did leave after having a hushed argument and came back in a tea-length green gown. Apparently, my auntie saw this too, which meant Talia was subjected to stares, whispers, and backhanded giggle fits throughout my whole American wedding. It made Talia feel embarrassed, and she cried to my mother-in-law, who came to me and told me to keep my kind in line. To this, I crossed my arms and told her maybe Talia should have stayed in her lane, that she knew not to wear red for multiple but mostly cultural reasons, and it was not my fault my family was shaming her. It is not my fault she became cannon fodder for my gossiping gaggle of a family. Those were the consequences of her actions. Tom and my sister-in-law backed me up, and my mother-in-law left with Talia before dessert. The next day, there was a social media post from Talia crying about how she was exiled from her best friend's wedding because the bride was jealous. I made a post back telling her that she wore red, knowing how inappropriate it was, how her best friend is her ex, and to not sugarcoat what she did. I then tagged my mother-in-law in a separate post with screenshots of Talia's post and told her this was the last straw, that I have been disrespected by Talia from the very beginning of my relationship, and now that I was her daughter-in-law, she needed to keep Talia away from family events and holidays since she does not respect Tom and me. I did not care if they still went on weekly shopping sprees or spa days, just keep her away from Christmas and barbecues. Talia removed her post after being publicly called out. My mother-in-law was good on this compromise until 3 years ago, after Talia came to Thanksgiving with a pie and a plastered smile, a Thanksgiving that I was hosting. She said something along the lines of, "Mother-in-law invited me, and I wanted to make sure mother-in-law can actually eat something since I know you tend to cook ethnic food." I slammed the door in her face, went over to my mother-in-law, and told her she could leave with Talia, who I had just slammed the door on. Tom looked at his mom, who had this deer-in-the-headlights look. She tried to sputter excuses, and my father-in-law tried to defend my mother-in-law, but Tom stood firm. He said they had lost access to him and any extension of him since they chose Talia. My in-laws, aside from my sister-in-law, left and we have not spoken since. Fast forward to last week, I got a text from an unknown number and it was my mother-in-law. She said she saw a picture of my boys from a mutual friend's post and wanted to reconcile. She said she would keep Talia away this time and that ever since she was cut off, she has been in minimal contact with Talia anyway. Her Facebook begs to differ. I told her as much, saying I knew BS when I smelled it and she made her choice. I told Tom about it and asked if he missed his family. He shrugged, saying he does not care and it has been relieving not having his mom around. He is the youngest son of 3, so he was always the baby boy. But I have since received texts from my brothers-in-law, their wives, and my father-in-law begging for a second chance. She always wanted to be a grandma, and I do feel like I am robbing her of a chance. Her other sons have not had children yet, and my sister-in-law cut her off when we did. But you cannot undo nearly a decade of disrespect with mere wishes and wants. And Talia is still in the picture, so I am skeptical about how long that promise will last. I feel like I am being callous, but there are so many stories I could tell about Talia's disregard for Tom's boundaries and mine. I do not want to welcome a storm into my house by opening up the gates. Am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law she made her choice after she kept my husband's ex around? Edit. Since there seems to be some confusion, I want to clarify that Tom did not cheat on Talia with me. Tom broke up with Talia after a few platonic hangouts with me. That is why I said you could call it an emotional affair, because you could argue it was one loosely. Tom only asked me out after he broke up with Talia, and I accepted after he confirmed via text. He had broken up with her while visiting home for the weekend. There was no overlap between Talia's relationship and mine with Tom. So for everyone who thinks I was the other woman and the reason my mother-in-law hates me is because Tom cheated on Talia. No, he did not. Update. So first off, thanks to everybody who supported me on my first post. I just wanted to clarify a few things since I was in hysterics when I wrote the original post and worded some things weirdly. First off, Tom didn't cheat on me. The timeline goes as follows. Tom and Talia were originally forced to hang out since childhood, and Talia developed a crush. The two got together in 7th grade. Tom left for college and met me. We hung out, just platonic, and had stuff in common, more than Talia and he did. He went home and broke things off with her, then asked me out the following week. It took 4 dates before I actually started to view him as a serious potential partner. So no overlap of relationships, no affair, no reason for all those comments saying I was an asshole for being the other woman. Also, thanks to the people who defended me against those accusations. And before anybody says, you're being awfully defensive, you must have cheated, I'm defensive because I view adultery as a crime nobody can come back from. In my culture, adultery is very common. I believe studies showed 55% of married Indians have committed it, so it is a sensitive subject. Also, to clarify, Talia is the one who wore the white dress to the Indian wedding and attempted to wear the red dress to the American wedding. I know a few people were confused on that too. So now on to the update. We have remained no contact with my mother-in-law. After receiving a few more messages from that number, Tom and I formulated a reply along these lines. Dear mother-in-law, you have repeatedly shown you don't care about Tom's and my feelings regarding multiple things. I'm sorry if our relationship broke apart, that fantasy you had with Talia being your daughter-in-law, but the fact is it wasn't going to happen. Talia has been a constant thorn in our relationship. Both you and she have been passive-aggressive, rude, oblivious, and snide in your remarks and actions towards us. You said you would refuse to come to the weddings if Talia was not invited, which you knew would make Tom look bad to my elders, who, unlike you, have since accepted him as one of our own. You allowed Talia to berate me, comment about me, and joke about me, and if I ever tried to joke back, you would say, "That's not nice, she was just joking." Funny how the jokes were pretty one-sided in that house. You made it very clear that Talia is the daughter you always wanted, hence why my sister-in-law cut contact when we did. The only reason your sons stay is because they know if they leave, then you'll die with no kids to mourn you. Since you nitpick their wives, now that I am no longer around to be the scapegoat. I have screenshots of everything between you and Talia, texts from both of you, mocking ones and threatening ones. If you try to come after me for grandparents' rights, I will get my attorney and make sure you keep your racist self away from my family. With all due respect, please leave us alone. You were fine not talking to us before we had kids. Maybe Talia can finally move on and give you grandkids. Sincerely, the OP family. I then blocked their numbers and set all my socials to private. Tom did as well, and we have talked to family about going private and unfriending people who may have ties to my mother-in-law or Talia. Things have been quiet since then. I know Talia has seen the post because she screenshot it and sent it to Tom via one of those apps you can get a spare number through. He sent a few laughing emojis before telling her he knows about the post and blocking her. Tom has always had my back like this. Even if Talia was in the picture, he and my sister-in-law would do little things to show we were a united front. I know a lot of people gave Tom flack in the last post for not standing up for me, but keeping my mother-in-law in check was like a circus act, and my aunties are gossips to their cores. Once during a family BBQ, Talia spilled cola on my sundress and Tom accidentally poured his water over her head while talking to my sister-in-law as they walked past. It was like a cold war, and as of right now, we finally seem to be winning. I got a message saying that Talia coming to my weddings was comparable to Camilla going to Diana and Charles's wedding, and now that I look back at it, it kind of was. Only Talia will always be the XXD. If my mother-in-law or Talia does something, I'll be sure to come back. I got locked out of my account for suspicious activity. Apparently, the moderators thought I was a bot, so hopefully it doesn't happen again. The book nerd said, I'll never understand why some people chase after someone who has obviously moved on with a spouse or block them. People need to find someone who wants to be with them too. So many people in these stories seem to forget that. Do they really think they'll be happy with someone who doesn't want to be with them? Minions Have Won said it really wasn't, unless Tom was actually in love with Talia and only marrying OP because his family insisted on it. Since that appears to be the exact opposite of what happened, I can confidently state that OP and whoever sent her that message didn't think that comparison through. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, Gamersupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.